Ah, boy, this ought to be a fun one to talk about today. How's it going, everyone? Hobbs Yoda here, back in my video series of ranking and reviewing the Star Wars films from worst to best, my own personal bias opinion. Again, cannot touch on that enough today, that it being my own personal bias opinion, since today we are going to talk about the most controversial one of them yet, probably one of the most controversial films of all time. We're going to be ranking and reviewing my number 9 spot, The Last Jedi. So yeah, this should be a fun one to talk about, since, as I said, it is definitely the most controversial film of the bunch, and probably one of the most controversial of all time. Because people, they either seem to absolutely hate this movie, or they absolutely love it and adore it and praise it. It's insane. For me though, I actually I like this movie. I am a defender of this movie, and we'll get into that. But I absolutely do not love this movie, though. I do not absolutely love and adore it. I do see some of the problems with in it, and actually do have some of my own issues with it as well. But we'll get into all that. Right off the bat, though, at the beginning of this film, is already a mixed bag for me as well, because I did really like the opening space battle sequence of them taking down the dreadnought in this film. I thought that was a really great opening sequence. Was a great space battle with lots of good suspense. But one thing I did not like in it is the humor that they put in there. Because I felt like the last one, Episode 7, did a really good job of getting the original trilogy Star Wars humor back in there. And then the humor at the beginning of this film, you got freaking Poe, trying to distract Hux and making a yo mama joke to him in Star Wars, and it just left me like, did I really just hear a Walla joke in Star Wars? Sure, it can be funny taken in a different context somewhere, but it just did not feel like the classic Star Wars humor to me. It was just weird. It just didn't feel like Star Wars. Felt like a Monty Python sketch. Monty Python is good, but like a Monty Python sketch, put into a Star Wars movie, and just didn't feel right. And then let's get into one of the most controversial scenes that was played for laughs, which I did not like that it was played for laughs, but I am a little bit of a defender of the scene. After the space battle, we get to the island where Rey is about to hand over Luke his old lightsaber, his father's lightsaber, the lightsaber that has been through generations and throughout this whole saga. And it's played for laughs that he takes it and just chucks it over his shoulder. But nearly right off the freaking cliff! And so yeah, this caused a bit of an uproar among the fans, rightfully so. And I don't think he should have chucked it over his shoulder either. I hate that it was played for laughs too. I'm one of those people. I mean, I would have been fine though if he had just tossed it to the side, or just put it down, because it would have displayed the same message that he doesn't want this. Because honestly though, I am a defender of him throwing the lightsaber. I understand why he threw the lightsaber. A lot of people were freaking out about that. Like, that is his father's lightsaber. Oh my god, the legacy. He just chucks it to the side. Okay, well, first off, Luke, I don't feel like has ever been one that's main use has been, for the lightsaber. He's always been more in tune with the Force. He's more of on the pacifist side of what a Jedi should be. He's been more trained by Yoda than anything. He's like the ultimate pacifist Jedi. So he's never been one for the saber. And let's not act like it's not the first time that Luke has thrown a lightsaber before. I mean, we even go back to Return of the Jedi. Obi-Wan is the one that's telling Luke he must kill Vader. They've already failed because Obi-Wan doesn't think that Vader can be redeemed, when Yoda just tells him to confront him. And when the Emperor's trying to, even get Luke to kill Vader as well, Luke, what does he do? Oh my god, get this, people. He throws a lightsaber. Yeah, he throws it to the side, which is, again, honestly what I think he should have done this film. I think throwing it nearly off the cliff is a bit of an overreaction. But to be fair, though, as well, I also don't think, Luke has a lot of good memories of that lightsaber, probably. And it's obvious that he has quite some PTSD with everything that he's been through in this film. And, him seeing that lightsaber again probably doesn't bring back the fondest memories. Probably brings back memories of his father as Vader, and him getting his hand chopped off by his father as well. So probably not the fondest memories to him. And as I said, Luke's never been one that's been more fully for the lightsaber. Anyways, he's been more of the Jedi way, being a pacifist, a defender of the peace, which is good. And that's one thing I actually really like about Luke in this movie, is that he actually notices the flaws of the Jedi Council, goes back and like studies it and researches it and stuff, and actually sees the holes there in the Jedi Council. For me, he's like becoming the first gray Jedi that we've seen since like Qui-Gon, who actually sees some of the holes, within the council and sees that the Jedi need to change. And for me, that was awesome. And to me, honestly, that just made the prequels better. And I know Rian Johnson gets a lot of crap for this movie. And honestly, even though I like this movie, I do like JJ's films better. But, at least Rian Johnson was like the first one that was actually willing to like acknowledge the prequels, that they exist. Because, yeah, I mean, you can have your problems with the prequels, but there's still good stuff in there. You don't need to be like J.J. Abrams, who just hates them completely, so he's just going to not acknowledge them at all. I mean, at least Rian Johnson was, the one to acknowledge the prequels, and I think by doing that, made them better. Because by acknowledging the Jedi's failure, as Luke does in this movie, he's able to train a better generation of Jedi with Rey. And ultimately, I mean, this is probably the most disliked film of the new trilogy, but ultimately because of that, I think it's this film in the trilogy that actually even gives us the message as to what this new trilogy is even about. Because, without this film, I don't even think we would know what this new trilogy is even about. It's because of this film, and because of Luke noticing the flaws in the old Jedi way, the old Jedi Order, and being able to train a new one, that we get the main message of this film. You see, the message of the prequel trilogy was about the fall of the darkness, the Jedi becoming corrupt and the dark side coming to overtake everything. And then, the original trilogy is about the return to the light, And I feel like this film, with Luke discovering the flaws of the Jedi in the first place, we get the message, of them trying to find true balance by bringing both harmony, to the light and the dark, finding that inner harmony between them. So I thought that was really cool, message of this film. And I also love the message of this film of, growing from failure. I love that scene where Yoda even shows up and acknowledges that, he failed a bit as well with the Old Jedi Council. He even agrees with Luke. He's like, yes, time for the Jedi to end it is. And I love that line he gives, to Luke, the greatest, teacher failure is. It's like, it's a beautiful message to me. So, a lot of people, they got mad because, Luke didn't end up being the character that they expected him to be, like the Luke Grandmaster Luke Skywalker we read about in like the old Legends books and everything. But honestly, this story arc that Luke has, I felt made him more human, and made, me realize that we all, screw up. We all make mistakes and that we can learn from those mistakes. It's the greatest teacher. That's how we learn, is by failing. And because of that, because of Luke's mistake and going back and learning about the mistakes of the Jedi, he was able to train a new, better generation of Jedi with Rey. So I overall, love that message in this movie. Now, I know a lot of people's issue with this movie, though, is the mistake that Luke himself made, though. They didn't feel like it was something that Luke would do, which I'm also going to defend this scene. You see, Luke's mistake was that, since Leia and Han sent their son, Ben at the time, to go train with Luke, because they sensed darkness in him. Of course, Luke, ended up sensing a bit of that darkness too and wanted to see how bad it could become. And so he did. He went to go see. He went to look inside Kylo's head as he was sleeping in his tent at night. And, Luke, in this scene, he says that he saw everything that Kylo would do, and that he said that he saw that Kylo would destroy everything that he had built. And seeing everything that he would do, that would mean that Luke, he saw Han die. He saw what Kylo would do to, like, his friends. Everything that he has fought for being destroyed. So, of course, Luke would have, the split-second thought of, being able to end it, of being able to stop it, right then and there by ending Kylo. And, of course, a lot of people got upset because of that scene. You're like, why would you freaking kill your own nephew, or whatever? It was like, but he didn't, because, of course, I think we would all have that thought, in my opinion. I mean, because here's the thing. Having bad thoughts doesn't make you a bad person, okay? We all have bad thoughts from time to time. What makes your true good character is how you respond to those bad thoughts, is your actions. Luke, he had that thought, but he didn't act on it. He even says it was a thought for a split second, and then he was haunted by it. He, instantly regretted it. But fortunately, right, before he was going to turn his lightsaber off, though, Ben, Ben already saw it with it ignited, and, Ben said, he's probably thinking, dear God, my parents just sent me to this man to get murdered! Because, what else would he be thinking at that point? So, this movie also really made Kylo Ren's turn to the dark side make a lot of sense for me, too. And why he would join the First Order. Because, if teenagers, they like to rebel against their parents, and if he thinks that his parents, were sending him off to get killed against Luke for all he knows, I mean, of course, what's the number one way to rebel against your parents? And then joining the order that they've been fighting against. It's like the ultimate rebellion. It's like the ultimate sticking it to him F-you move. And from his point of view, from Kylo's point of view, of, his mother sending him away to get killed by his uncle because she senses the darkness, in him. So from his point of view, thinking that she did that, he thinks that, his family thinks he's a monster. And so from this point of view, it makes, Kylo Ren's inner conflict make a lot of sense in this film as well. Because not only, is him joining the Dark Order, like the ultimate rebellion move he can do to get payback against his parents, as I said, but it's the only logical option for him in his head that he can do anyways. Because even if he didn't want to, turn back to the light, to go back home, he doesn't think he can. Because for all he knows is that his mother thinks he's a monster and probably wouldn't welcome him home in the first place. It's like he tells Rey, once Rey finds out she's a Palpatine in Episode 9, he tells her, you can't go back to her now, just like I can't, speaking about Leia. So it made his conflict make a lot of sense in this movie, and it also made sense why Luke couldn't be the one to redeem him, and why it would have to be Leia to redeem him, because she's the one that sent him away. So of course she would have to be the one to show that she still loves him, is willing to welcome him back home to the light, and to make amends with him, to, suddenly turn Kylo back to the light side and change his point of view. And, as I said, a lot of people don't like that Luke even caused this, even had that thought to end Kylo Ren before he could even become Kylo Ren, before he could even come about. Because a lot of people are like, oh, Luke wouldn't do that. But to me, Luke having that impulsive thought isn't anything new from like the Luke we've already seen from the original trilogy. Because Luke, in my mind, has always been one to have those impulsive thoughts when it comes to being able to save his friends. Because if we go back to Empire Strikes Back, Luke completely abandons his training way too early and confronts Vader way too early and suffers the consequences for it, because he sensed that Han and Leia were in danger. So he had an impulsive thought and made an impulsive decision and action to abandon his training early to go and try to save them, and he suffered the consequences for it. So, Luke, whenever his friends are in danger, he always, puts himself at risk and makes those impulsive decisions. So, of course, he would have the thought, if he saw that Kylo, would kill Han and end everything that he had built up, of course he would have the impulsive thought of, ending it. But this scene, we see that Luke Skywalker actually has learned and grown from the original trilogy. Because he has that impulsive thought, of course, but it was nothing but a thought. He didn't make the impulsive action this time. He didn't act on it. Of course, though, by the time he decided not to act on that thought, though, it was too late. But it's still cool either way, because I think it helps us see a lot of growth from Luke Skywalker in that scene. And Luke even learns from his mistakes in this movie, too, by, not just running away and letting the Jedi die, but learning that they can improve, and that he can train an even better generation of Jedi in Rey. And ultimately, in the end, represents the truest form of Yoda's teachings by committing, like, the most noble Jedi act of all time, with, like, no violence whatsoever, by stopping an entire army dead in its tracks by using nothing but the Force alone, which I thought was awesome. And once again, Luke dies by performing sacrifice, by putting himself on the line for his friends, dies by protecting his sister, and her army, so that the Jedi can rebuild and get away. It's awesome to me. I loved it. However, as I said, though, there is a lot of stuff in this film that I do not love, and a lot of that has to do with the side plot story stuff, because I actually do love all the main story arc stuff. I love all that stuff with Rey and Luke on the island, and the whole connection with Rey and Kylo, and even the throne room scene, everything going on with Snoke, because I know that throne room scene, I love it. It's entertaining. I know it wasn't as well choreographed as it should have been, like, I agree with that, but I love how, Rey, she thinks that Kylo is going to turn to the light side because she foresees him killing his master, killing Snoke, and he thinks that Rey's gonna join him in the dark side because he foresees her helping him, which both their visions come true, but it's only because Kylo wants to gain further power, and Rey only aids him because she thinks Kylo's going to turn to the light. So have their own biased belief to justify what they saw, but ultimately they were doing it for different reasons, which I thought was cool. But as I said, all the side plot story stuff in this film doesn't make any sense, and it has some plot holes to it, and I can't stand it. The main thing I can't stand about it is, so the whole side plot is that the First Order is tracking them through light speed, the Resistance. And Leia's in recovery right now because they destroyed one of their ships, and Leia used the Force to bring herself back to the ship. She's still recovering from the explosion, which I know a lot of people have problems with that scene, but I always thought, if a Jedi can move stuff with their mind, they should be able to move themselves as an object too through space. So I never had a problem with that scene. But anyways, while Leia is recovering, while she's recovering, an old friend of hers, General Holdo, takes over and doesn't reveal any plans that she has for them to do. It's ridiculous. And I get why she doesn't do it at first, because, later she gives that line that Leia used to say. She tells Poe that, Leia used to say that if you only see the light when the sun is up or when it's there, then you'll never make it through the darkest night or whatever. So that makes sense. But when it gets to the point of your crew committing mutiny on the ship because they don't know what your plan is, I think that's a pretty good time to reveal your damn plan rather than just letting your crew commit mutiny against each other. That is horrible leadership. So because of that, I hated her character. And as I said, I didn't mind the Leia scene where she got blown into space and used the Force to get herself back in the ship. I didn't mind that. I hate that that's how they decided to kill General Akbar off, though. It's like, oh, and Akbar's dead? Okay, wow, what a meaningful death for that iconic character. And it should have been someone like him that made the sacrifice at the end of going through into light speed into the First Order ship. Because that shot of Holdo sacrificing herself was beautiful, but it didn't have as much meaning to it as it could have, because you only just met this Holdo character, and she was really dumb with her logic, so you didn't really care that she was dying and sacrificed herself. Like, it was a really cool, beautifully shot, but there was no emotional weight to it, because it's like, okay, I didn't really know that Holdo character much anyways, and even if I did like her, I've only known her for like about an hour, so there's that. So I feel like that scene had a more emotional weight to it, and it does make sense, why Finn would want to go and, deactivate the light speed tracking, of course, on the First Order ship, but I hate that they split up Poe and Finn in this movie, because they were the two that had like the best chemistry in the last film, and they decided to split them up for some reason. And they rehashed Finn's story arc of wanting to run away again to ultimately becoming a true fighter for the Resistance. They rehashed that story arc. And to me, that's what Rose thinks Finn is at the beginning, is a war hero of the Resistance, but then finds out that he's still trying to run away and that he's not. But he does become that at the end of the movie, so it makes sense as to why she does end up liking him again. But what doesn't make sense is how she stops his sacrifice at the end of the film, because she doesn't love them, apparently, and tells him that this is how we're going to win, not fighting what we hate, but fighting for what we love, or whatever she says. And it's like, that's literally what he was just doing, though. He was about to have this meaningful sacrifice, defending what he loved, defending literally all of you guys, and you kind of like stopped that. But eventually their doom was impendable anyway, so let's be honest. So it's a good thing that Luke showed up, and as I said, I did enjoy Luke's final sacrifice in this film, though, and that story arc. Ultimately, this film made Luke my favorite Jedi, because he's human, he makes mistakes, and as I said, this film made the prequels even better, because this is the first film to touch on the prequels of the sequel trilogy, and was able to learn on the mistakes from the old Jedi Order of their corruptness. So ultimately, and it gave us the, again, ultimate message of what this new trilogy was about finding both the harmony between the light and the dark. So I really liked that. Unfortunately, the side plot stuff is just hard to get through, because, Rose and Finn, they don't have as much chemistry as Poe and Finn did, so they're trying to split them up. And then obviously there's that plot hole of, General Holdo not revealing her plan when she should have, because the whole ship's going into mutiny, and then you find out she had a plan. It's like, why didn't she just reveal that when the whole ship is going against mutiny against each other? It's just horrible leadership. They killed Akbar off in a horrible way, but I did like what they did with Luke, and I liked the message of learning from the old false ways of the Jedi and creating a stronger, better, newer generation of Jedi. So ultimately, there was still quite a lot of stuff I liked in this film. It's hard to get through a lot of the side stuff, and it does take up a lot of the film since it is the longest Star Wars film. Ultimately, there is still, I think, a lot to like and enjoy in this film. So for me, The Last Jedi gets 3.5 kyber crystals. But yeah, let me know what y'all thought of The Last Jedi, and I'll see y'all for my next ranked movie on this list that I'll review. I'll review my number 8 spot next time, and I'll see y'all then. Peace.